Good morning. Welcome. This is Angela Coulter, your consciousness transformation and ascension guide, and originator of Trinity Energy Progression, bringing you this week's Living the Shift. It's funny. We talk a lot about stepping into our true power and, discovering and embracing, embodying our life's purpose. And more often than not, we are somehow self-sabotaging, or we are not prioritizing. We're letting other things take priority over what we know our heart. And so, first of all, it's important to know, to recognize what our purpose is, right? Because I have a lot of people who come in and ask me about that. And I usually say, well, it's what makes your heart sing, what allows you to have your heart sing in every moment. And so when somebody is discovering that, there is a really deep connection to what the belief of worthiness is, right? So I always joke and say, well, not joke, because it's actually true, is that everything is only about, at least at the very most, like 2 steps away from looking at like feelings of unworthiness or beliefs of unworthiness. And so in terms of our limitations and our challenges and stuff like that. So when we're thinking about, my life's purpose and living my life's purpose, we say we would love to do that. Now, first of all, it's for us, we go through a ton of stuff, clearing out all these things that say we can't do that. And like that we can't do that, and B, that it can't be fun, right? That it's got to be, a suffrage or, martyrdom or something that will have a consequence for pursuing, right? A consequence in okay, for me to be passionate about what I do, there has to be some negative consequences about that. And we have that collectively, this belief that happiness has to be earned, that joy and all that kind of stuff is something that we work for, instead of no, all the stuff we work for is the stuff that's like separation based and limiting, and that we believe is outside of us. And so when we start working from the idea and understanding that our true happiness and is connected, our true happiness, our divine is connected to our divine purpose, and that we actually are expressing our bliss in that divine purpose when we do finally embody it. And we know what it is. It's not something, it's just we've forgotten, because we get so hung up in separation here on all the distractions and all of the beliefs of externalizations, that we are saying, oh no, I have to do all this stuff. I have to do all this stuff first, right? So we also go through a bunch of experiences around how to deplete ourselves and disempower ourselves. Like, we go through this stuff about how we're not that, how we are born of original sin, how we are not, how we're not worthy, how we have to earn enlightenment, or we have to earn heaven, or we have to earn, being good or divine or whatever. And so that's part of that's part of our fun here in separation, is believing that, and convincing ourselves of that. And then we go full circle of, we have to push it away and then allow it to come to us, right? But we believe in this separation, that we have to create it, we have to create it through suffering and challenge, and have to overcome and have the grand journey, because that's our story, right? That's our epic story. So we talk about all that, and we are coming to this place of recognition and realization. But what happens is we will find all these other things that take priority, that we have to do, that we have the roles we have to fulfill, things like that. Because and I talk to a lot of people who come into me and they're like, well, I would love to do this and I feel like this is my purpose, I just can't seem to get to it. or I'm self-sabotaging, or I have to, prioritize these roles and all that kind of stuff. It's like, well, we don't have to do anything. And what really comes underneath a lot of it is this idea that, because we have set out big shoes for ourselves. So when we set out big shoes for ourselves, in terms of this is what I'm going to attain, and for many of us, this is like our last iteration or one of our last iterations in this form, this part of our consciousness. So we want to complete the cycles. And in completing the cycles is like, okay, so it's sort of like, to me, a little bit about like cramming for an exam sometimes, where it's like, oh, I've done all this stuff, and yes, I've done all these lessons, and I'm ready to tie everything up and complete the set of lessons, in this way, in this presentation as what Earth looks like, right? Incarnate here. So when we do that, we set ourselves up with like a big finale kind of thing, many more times than not. And so then we have like a lot of big, I guess, stories or whatever that we have created or are creating in this resolution and completion and remembrance. And we're doing it all together, and we're pulling out all of these partitions so that it's not from like different lifetimes. We're doing like pretty much the equivalent of like, 10 or 15 lifetimes in one these days, in terms of like what we are accomplishing, the lessons to learn. And so it can seem pretty daunting. And when you're in this place where, I am, still, I'm challenged with this, I'm distracted by this, and then you really sort of know at some level, this is what I'm here to do. It is a really funny thing, because then we get to this place of saying, oh, well, I get this guidance that this is what I'm here to do. Or I get this guidance, or I get this feeling, or I understand my guidance is that, I have put these huge shoes out for myself in this lifetime. And then what happens is then we think, oh, well then we get overwhelmed, right? Because there's this ego attached to it of, oh, well, I'm supposed to be this great whatever, or I'm supposed to be this whatever. And we put this expectation out for ourselves. And then, in this way of, oh, I have to attain that instead of I'm already that. And so what we do then is we then start down the path. Even when we're heavily guided, and the ego sort of like, yeah, yeah, let's see you do that. And so we do that, but we put it out there, and we start to work toward whatever that is that we, are getting guidance as our purpose, or our mission, or, our completion, our realization. And we have done this so much and for so long, and we've so embedded those habits of belief of we have to do it through the epic journey and the big challenges and everything else, that when we say, oh, okay, well, I can do this easily and I can do it with fun, actually the ego sort of says, well, what fun is that? And number two, like, first we start with what fun is that? But then the other side is, who are you to do that? Who are you to be able to do that? Like, how dare you? That's also a collective thing, right? Because it's like, well, we decided to have all of these kind of, experiences on the journey and have this amazing, like epic challenge of suffrage and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, but it's more fun to be fun and laugh and to enjoy and to be able to remember without that, to complete the lessons without that suffrage and limitation and lack and all that kind of stuff. But you hear that voice. The more we start to work toward that, allow ourselves to be that realization of our purpose. If it's really important for us to stay observant, because the very hidden thing underneath that is what we call the imposter syndrome. The ego says we could not possibly be that important. We could not possibly do all that. Who am I to do that? And so you start like walking that talk. You start like being what you start stepping into those shoes, and we throw ourselves off the cliff or the high diving board, however you want to look at it. But what we do is we tend to then go ahead and it's like we're faking it till we make it. And then in the back of our heads, we're going, oh, because I'm supposed to, right? And who am I to not do that? And at some level, that's what makes you tick and why you're here. It's just that we've convinced ourselves otherwise, and all this lack and all this kind of stuff. So then we're like, okay, well then I'm just a fake. And we might not ever say it aloud. Might not ever consciously hear the thought. But what we then do is, because we have this underlying belief that we are a fake. First of all, there's a multiple levels of that too. Okay, and I have talked about that on my Monday podcast, Ascended World with Sarah Segan. We've talked about that, and I think we've talked about it online. But there's multiple levels to that too, because the first level is, well, who are you? Who am I to do that? Right? Who am I to be that? And I know, because this came to me when so I was really pushed. I pushed myself through my higher self into awakening in the first decade of the 2000s. And literally, so then it was like I pushed and pushed. I got this push and push and guidance to go and start doing this professionally, right? Time's a wasting. Keep on, time to do this. And I tried to not do it because my mind or my ego was like, well, who am I, right? Who am I? Or how can I even do that? Or I'm like, what about people judge me and all that kind of stuff? So all that stuff I had to get through. So then I started doing this full time. And then within a year, so first of all, I'm new to the field. This was a completely new field for me to start working in. And knew that there had been many others that I knew that had been in for like decades and everything else. And so in the back of the mind, I had to go through the who am I to do this? Well, then within a year, before, not even a year had passed after I started doing this work full time, when I got the inspiration, the guidance, the understanding or remembrance of what has become the practice Trinity Energy Progression. And so here I am doing this professionally out there for less than a year, and it just sort of dumps into my conscious memory. And I was like, yes, I have volunteered. Guidance was I have volunteered to bring this practice forward, and it's like a next step. It helps like this real accelerated awakening and consciousness and expansion and embracing of the whole beyond ritual and ceremony and all that kind of stuff. And so this is like less than a year after I was doing this full time. And then of course there's that little voice in the back of my head saying, well, who am I to do this? Right? And yet the thing was that I was so focused on my guidance, on my meditation, on doing my self-work, on expanding and allowing, that, the question that came after the who are you to do this? And the question was, who are you to not? Because why would you not want to do what you came here to do? What a waste that would be, right? What a waste of time. So I just sort of, threw myself off the diving board there. And so, put this practice together, I got it started, and now it's been 8.5 years, almost 9 years since I've taught the first pilot class, and have instructors in it, and I have people all over, practitioners all over the place, and I've seen amazing things that have happened. And I might not have remembered why I brought that, I was bringing that to, or had volunteered to bring that to here on this plane, the remembrance of that. But the thing is, we all have those kind of pieces and parts to bring here. The point is that we're all the divine bringing that here. And we're so in the habit in this body of forgetting. We close ourselves down so tightly, which is funny because last night I had this weird couple of hours where I know there's a lot of collective anxiety and energy, in these big waves going on that comes and goes. But I had a great day, and then last night I had this weird thing about suddenly God, it's just never comfortable being in this body and these physical bodies. So limiting, whacked kind of thoughts coming in, very anxiety ridden and uncomfortable and all kind of stuff. So we're so used to getting lost in that and getting past all that and finding ourselves in that that we are so used to forgetting what the bigger purpose is, and we trust, even though it's not a conscious thing, that our higher consciousness, or we call our subconsciousness or super consciousness, whatever, knows the way, has the map, right? And so we go through life and we're just like, okay, well, maybe my purpose, like, or whatever. Or there are many who believe they'd have no purpose. And it's like, well, if we had no purpose, we wouldn't be here, because that's just how we create. So we have many of us, well, actually all of us are here to be this really important, good morning, Teresa, to be this really important note in the whole symphony. And it's important for us to get to it in this very accelerated manner. And we set that up. We set that up for ourselves here and now. And we have many of us who are coming into the remembrances, like I brought in Trinity Energy Progression, and there's like so many what I call different flavors of ice cream. And it doesn't matter what flavor you choose or that you're attracted to, because it will, if you're guided and you're pulled, then it helps you get to your own flavor. The key is not to get stuck and addicted to somebody else's flavor, but it's to really enjoy that flavor and see how it's part of your flavor as well, and then find what your flavor, your note in the symphony is. So it's time for us to get out of our own way. And so I was saying there's layers to this. The first layer of the imposter syndrome is, who am I to do this, right? Who am I to bring something like this that's this powerful into this creation? And lots of amazing stuff right now, right? The second question, once you become a much more confident in that, and you become much more fluid and accepting, and in my experience has been it's been more than a decade now, more than a decade of doing this consciously, where then you become really comfortable in okay, I accept that of myself, and I accept that of everybody around us, right? Well, then we get to a point where the second level of the imposter syndrome is, am I really human, or am I being an imposter being human, right? So the first is, I'm being an imposter getting out there and doing this stuff, or bringing this to, into play in the 3D, right, in the earth dimensions. Not just 3D, but in the earth dimensions. Am I being an imposter because am I good enough to do that, right? So then we get past the good enough, but then it's like, oh wait, I'm not even human. This is just me in a human body. And then we feel like we're being an imposter because we're doing it through a human body as a conduit. And then, that's how we always do it. That's how we've always done it here, and that's been the experience. So the key is for us to get past all of that, right? And to see the fun in the game. And I'm saying, of course I'm not human, but I am human too. Of course I have of course I have limiting experiences, because I still have an ego, and it's less and less and less as time goes on. But then it's just a matter of being really observant to my own self-sabotaging or self-limitations, or the ideas and the whole imposter thing, right? So it's getting through all that so that you then say, okay, well, and I do tell people when I work with them, because I'm like, okay, this is powerful. That this is what you're here to bring to the world. And it doesn't have to be something like this. Like in the energy world, it can just be like, there's a lot of artists out there right now that are really coming to fruition, and art has to do with intuition. So of course we would have an explosion in artistry. That would make so much sense, right? So many things. And as we start to remember how to express our true self in authenticity, the way it comes out is in these arts and writing and singing and art itself, all different kinds of ways. We are getting symbols in divine expression, right, which people call light language. I just call it divine expression. We're getting ways to do it that are not limited into very, very black and white kind of things, but we're also expanding those black and white things to remember its full divinity and the hologram of it versus that flat thing. And I talk about that a lot. It's like drawing a picture of a cube on a piece of paper and saying, well, that's a cube. Or you're just drawing a square first and saying, okay, look, that's a cube. And then you add a little even of perspective on the piece of paper, and you're like, okay, well, no, look, see, that's a cube. And you can see it and you get the idea of it, but until you actually have the experience of the cube in the hologram of the 3D, that's when you're like, oh yeah, I see it, I feel it, and I know I remember it, right? So our presence and our divine consciousness as we are in wholeness is much more of a hologram. It's a huge hologram, of which the earth dimensions are a very small part. So we start looking at things and we're going, oh, well, how could I possibly do this? Because how does that even fit within the earth dimensions? And then, and so the key is for us to step away and say, okay, this is just a very small part of me. So I know that I can do all this and bring this through. And we've used the body as the conduit, and we can do it in a way that is easy and comfortable and enjoyable and fun. And let's shift that so that all happens. When we take command of the reins and remember that we are the ones creating this, then there is nothing to, of course I'm not an imposter, but I am, but I'm not, right? Because in a way, we are all the writers, producers, and actors of these plays that we create. And when we come into the meat jacket we call a physical body, the little piece of our consciousness that does that and then forgets promptly how much bigger, consciousness and how much wholer we are. Oh, isn't that funny? The word holier, but with a WH. Holier we are. That's interesting. How we say, okay, well, I am this player, and I'm the villain, and I'm the protagonist, and I'm all these other players, and how interesting am I? And so, what if I just immersed myself to allow the fulfillment of each of those players to really be all they can be? And I can do that, and I can do that through even just this one body that I'm embodied as now. And at the same time, do it all in all the other ones as well. So it changes as you go along, right? But the funny part is there are still days and there are still moments, and I totally embrace that, and I totally feel it and know it at such a deep level. And yet then there are some days where then I get sort of a little pulled into the muck in the earth dimensions, in the 3D, where I'll be like, oh, well, because we have so much and we're such a habit of hierarchy that I'm like, oh, well, can I do this? Can I be a successful author? Can I be a successful speaker? Get the message out in the way that I feel like it's intended and all that kind of stuff. And I've been doing this work full time for almost 9 years now. So, and I know many who've been doing it even way longer. So, and there are others who I know that I talk to all the time, or that I've talked to repeatedly and had sessions with, or had they become my students and all that kind of stuff, where they are so ready to just fall off the tree. They're so ripe, they're ready to fall off the tree. That I'm like, and you're here to be your flavor. Why would you sell yourself short? Who would you, it's like I said when I was like, who am I to do this? When I would ask that, right? And the answer that I would get is, who are you not to do it? Oh, well, that's true, right? Or who am I not to not do it? But if I accept truly that I am, it's that's what I talk to people about a lot. And I have others who say to me, oh, well, this is your job, is how you kick me in the butt, you push me off, you help me push myself off the high diving board kind of thing. And it is because I've had to do it repeatedly. And it's not even just over the past 11 years. I've been doing it repeatedly my entire life. I look back at this life as what I set up to be my pushing myself off of the high diving board life constantly. So I've become very comfortable in the uncomfortable, so that it's okay, it's just a temporary thing. And maybe, that's why I then get into the, oh my gosh, it's so uncomfortable. But then the thing is, because I'm constantly pushing myself there, and I've done that my entire life, and I've set myself up to do that. And now I allow myself, comfort and discomfort, or comfort in the, and comfort through discomfort, without discomfort, like to allow myself to change without discomfort. That's what I was looking for. So let's get to that. Let's get to the fun, right? And okay, so first of all, I'm going to tell you right now, you are not an imposter, because everything is purposeful, and you were born and you are in this body. You have created yourself and your reality to be here for the purpose that deep down the seed is to really germinate and to blossom in. And the second part is, of course, I'm not human. Of course, we're not human. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. We are taking a tiny piece of our consciousness when we embody here, and we stuff it into these meat jackets and put partitions all around to make ourselves feel like in this particular very dense form and all this kind of stuff. So, wow, right? When you say that, then it's like, oh, when I say that, it's like, well, okay, that's no big deal. Of course. Well, of course. It's time for us to get past the stopping points. So our stopping points are, oh, well, I'm human, right? How many times you hear, I'm only human. Oh, it's just part of the human experience, etc., etc., etc. Okay. What if you said, I am the divine and I am human, allowing myself to have this experience, and I know it's temporary and it's optional, and I can manage it and create it as I choose. What a very different energy, right? That creates. I am ready, willing, and able to completely play in that. I can change it. Let's just change the rules. When we take that responsibility and the acknowledgement and the authenticity of, yes, I am divine and I am whole, and this is just a very small part of me that's embodied here, and yet I have the access to all of me, and because I am the producer, the writer, and the actors in the play. So how about we rewrite this? Why don't we rewrite this act? Let's change this act, or we'll write a new act. And we don't have to change the play. What if we just continued this way, and then we completed this, and then we did it all in this one play instead of 5 different plays? That's what we're doing right now. So step back and take a breath, do stuff, do some meditation, do some things like in nature. Make sure that you're constantly doing observation of your own consciousness and where you are about yourself. Because the first step to us getting to that realization of our own, what we call flavors of ice cream, and that realization of being the full note in the symphony that we came here to create, and the facets that we've created in ourselves, right? And I say that singularly because we are all essentially, once you get higher enough, part of the same consciousness. Then, why would we not strive to remember how to be the full saturation of that note? And as the note changes and evolves and shifts, that we just are ready to do that and explore that as well. Because we are infinitely able and powerful and divine. And when we do that, then we say, okay, well, now I'm going to let go of the idea that I'm only human. And I'm going to say, okay, I'm this and this and this, and I'm human for now. Or this part of me is human, but it's only a very small part of me. Then we can let go of the imposter syndrome entirely, and we can start to really embrace our divine purpose. And we can embrace the attainment of what we came here to do. And that is the beautiful symphony to be a part of and listen to and watch all at the same time. So look at that this week and ask yourself, what is my note to play in the symphony? What is my note to realize in this embodiment as the divine embodied as me, and as the part of me that is playing human in this meat jacket? Accept it all and embrace it all and say, oh, of course I'm not just human. Of course I'm even more than, of course, okay, but there's no imposter because there's nothing that we're not. So we can throw that out the window and be like, okay, I can create this. Let's play with it. What if I did? Instead of saying, oh, no, I can't do this. What if we say, what if I did? What would that look like? So start doing that and look at things within your life that you feel like, you would allow your heart to explode in joy, and that you would just be a beacon of joy for everyone. And then ask yourself, why am I not doing that? And And if the imposter syndrome comes up and say, then you say, okay, well now, let's look at this from a different perspective and say, well, who am I not to, right? Like, why would I do that? Like, why would I embody myself here to be this full note and then not be the full note? And then I have to do it again and again and again until I allow myself to do that. So I might as well just let myself do it, right? And really, really embrace the experience. So lots to think about. This is a really big step because we have a lot coming up that's going to really push us into those realizations. And the faster we let go of the idea of the imposter syndrome, and the self-sabotage and the limitations, the better and the quicker we'll get to this next level that we are allowing ourselves to shift, vibrationally, but in a way that's easy and fun versus, through clunky, challenging stuff, right? Because we've done that a lot. Let's change that. All right. Well, thank you for joining me. We'll see you next time. This is Angela Coulter signing off with this week's Living the Shift. Have a great one.